ఒకసారి లోడ్ ఎలా చేయాలి? లైవ్ స్టార్ట్ అయిందా? ఓకే. Check. Okay. So let's see today's articles. Okay, let's start today's articles one by one. Firstly, with respect to the headlines, what is it that you need to know about headlines here? I'll briefly talk about the takeaways from each article. Here, what you are expected to know is your core concept in economy. In economy, there is a chapter called Money and Banking. In that money and banking chapter, you will be reading about monetary policy tools. Okay? And you will be expected to know the basics behind money, multiplier, and its role in controlling money supply. So here you have tools like CRR, SLR. Okay, CRR is reduced. What does it mean? Let's say, for example, out of 100 rupees, banks are expected to put some money aside for safety purpose. Some percentage is retained with them in the form of statutory liquidity ratio, and some amount is left with RBI. You have to deposit with RBI. How much is it? Will be reduced to 3%. Previously it was 4%, now it is reduced to 3%. Meaning, if banks have deposits worth 100 rupees, 3 rupees will be set aside with RBI. And banks will keep with them, but they won't lend it. That is statutory liquidity ratio. Okay. How much interest should be charged by banks from the customers? It will be decided by the bank, but a base rate minimum will be set by RBI. That is, it is not set by RBI. To be very precise, it is set by the Monetary Policy Committee. Repo rate. The policy rate is called repo rate. Previously it was 6%, now it is 5.5%, meaning you are reducing the interest rate because we want people to spend more money by taking loans. Okay, so this policy stance is called expansionary policy, expansionary fiscal policy. That is all you need to know from this article. That's all. Now, this article is about the Chenab railway bridge. Here you have to understand where. So the homework for you, here is that you have to know where is this. Look at the map. See, Indian Express gave a better map in the first article. Maybe Indian Express article is better for this, for visual understanding. Second, what is the difference between longest and highest? Sorry, longest, yeah, highest. So this is about the distance. This is about the height. So this is the highest bridge in the world. Where is, you have to search where is the longest. Longest is in Kerala. Exactly what is that? Go and check. Okay. There are some specialities. The speciality of this bridge, if there is any civil engineer in the group, it is important for your interview also. It is there somewhere in yeah. This. Okay. This is designed by an engineer from ISC. She's actually from JNTU, Hyderabad. Old JNTU, Hyderabad. She, back then it was part of JNTU, Hyderabad. JNTU, Kakinada, basically. Then she went on to do NIT, MTech from NIT Warangal, PhD from IIT Madras. Then she took up a job in IISc Bangalore. So those details are not important. I'm just telling you the news. As a structure, what is its speciality? You just have to understand. It can withstand speeds of winds up to 220 kmph. What is the significance of this number? This is the speed of a super cyclone. Cyclones are categorized into many types depending on their speed. And the worst possible cyclone is the super cyclone, which hit the coast of Odisha many times. Odisha is most prone to the super cyclones. Even that kind of a speed it can withstand. And Jammu Kashmir is in a very tectonically active zone. Means earthquakes can happen very frequently. So up to a magnitude of 8 on the Richter scale, the bridge can withstand. The beauty of this bridge is that under this, even Eiffel Tower can fit in. This is taller than Eiffel Tower. That is the beauty of this bridge. You are a civil engineer, right? No, there is some civil engineer in the class. Yes, this is important for you. Okay, there is a term here. You have to focus on this, especially if you are a civil engineer. Somewhere in the interview in the future, I hope you give the interview, you will get it. Okay. So that is the, I mean, like I discussed, this whole crowd management issue, we can deal it later. Okay. This headline, what is it that you have to focus on? What is the difference between G7, G20? Which countries are there? Is India a part of G7? If India is not a part of G7, then why is PM Modi getting an invite? What is the history behind G7? When was the last G7 summit held? There are 7 countries. Japan, US, Italy, Canada, England, and Germany, France. What is the speciality of these countries? So you can just check if it is US or some other country. You have to by heart this list. G7, G7 plus 1, G8. Is this existing right now or not? OECD, G20. the difference between these different countries, different groupings, the purpose and the members. Out of this, in how many groupings is India a part of? This is what you have to check. Okay, homework. Yeah, this scheme can be used for quoting in your criminal justice system. Okay, just read this. Once we discuss the topic of criminal justice system, this can be much more useful. This is the most important article for the day. This is the second most and third most important article. Very lengthy article. So I'll just briefly tell you how you should read this article, from what lens you should read this article. In fact, that is what I will discuss for 3 of those articles, and I want you to read them, because if you don't read them, there is nothing that you will get out of it. But you need to understand a framework or a context, right? I will explain that context. For details part, you look at it. Once you get the context here, you will understand that newspaper article better. Okay? Now, here, water management in India. When you go to the Telegram channel of where I posted an article, there is one prelims channel, a smaller channel also. You have seen, right? So in that smaller channel, I have taken an excerpt from NCERT and showed you the sources of water. 97% of water is in oceans, which is useless for us. Whatever fresh water we have, in that 2% is left in glaciers only. The rest 1%, roughly 1%, whatever is there, is what we use. Out of that 1%, the least possible amount is there in the form of rivers. With that small, tiny amount itself, the entire population of this earth is surviving. And if something happens to them, we are really concerned. But when we are talking about water management, water stress is a technical term. I want you to search the definition given by Niti Aayog. It's a very, very specific definition, technical definition. The word water stress has a meaning. I want you to search for that water stress, because if I don't give you work and if I tell you everything, you will not learn anything. What is this water stress? Niti Aayog comes up with a water management index. What is the role of Niti Aayog actually? It is a policy research body, which collates data from various sources and gives solutions. It's like a think tank. It gives a structure to a problem, educates the policymakers, helps them understand the issue better. It's like a support system for the government to plan the policies better. So on water resources, it came up with a water management index, composite water management index, which tells the status of water availability, in short, water security, access, affordability, availability, all the dimensions will be taken care here. So it gave a definition of water stress. What is the meaning of that? Go and search. Okay, now we are talking about water stress because our water is limited. The basics of sources of water and the water stress, once they are understood, we will realize the main problem. What is the main problem? When we want to keep our water resources intact, efficiently, you have to understand the nature first. Understand the geography, how water circulates in the system. Like I told you, Earth is a system. It is not a linear process. It's like a feedback loop. Every season you have rainfall, then again it evaporates, then rainfall, evaporates, rainfall. That cycle has one purpose. That purpose is to maintain stability. Stability of our environment. You disturb that stability, of course the life gets disturbed. So when we want to carry out water governance, when we want to regulate these water resources, don't you think we have to respect the interconnection in that system? Yes or no? When you don't respect that interconnection, what happens? The resources will be mismanaged. There will be systemic inefficiencies, and that exactly is the central problem of any governance structure in this country. You have many ministries working parallelly. Ministry of Jal Shakti, Ministry of Environment, Forests, district level you have district boards, pollution control board. All of them work in different directions, and it is so confusing and inefficient that the end purpose of managing this water stress itself is not served. Now the question that you need to ask is, I understood the sources of water. I have water above ground, I have water below ground, right? The question that you need to ask is, who is managing this water above ground? Who is managing this water below ground? Who are the stakeholders in governance? This is the question that you need to ask. Say for example, you have the central groundwater board, then you have um, central groundwater authority, then you have national resource. Can you please put your phone on silent? Okay, where was I? Yeah, there are many regulatory bodies both above and below the ground. The problem is there is no coordination between them. The orders that each of these stakeholder give are in contradiction to each other. There needs to be a consonance between all these stakeholders, both above ground and below ground, because for example 80 to 90% of our water is used in agriculture, and the biggest problem in agriculture is mismanagement of water. How is it happening? Consider the policy of MSP. We are giving MSP for rice and wheat. Rice and wheat only most of the times. Procurement happens in a large amount for these crops. These are water guzzling crops. On the top of that, you also have sugarcane, for which you have, do you have MSP for sugarcane? Yes or no? Are you aware or not aware? You are not aware. Go and check the mechanism. There is a difference in the mechanism of MSP of other crops and sugarcane. You can search in the Telegram channel itself, just search sugarcane, you will get elaborate articles. Instead of directly buying from sugarcane farmers, the government will pay sugarcane mills. Those millers will get the money for taking sugarcane produce, because sugarcane is a fast perishable goods. If you don't manage them properly, they will get spoiled in a very short time, and government does not want to take the headache of managing those sugarcane resources. It's best managed locally, and that's why a new mechanism was devised. What is that? Go and search. Which states produce the largest amount of sugarcane? Go and search. Anyway, the point being, water resources are mismanaged for the production of these crops. These are water guzzling crops. They take up a lot of water. What do we do with them? Either they get rotten in Food Corporation of India godowns, food wastage, and this is not even sustainable. So a distorted policy like MSP, where we are producing more than what we need, we are not even exporting, the buffer stocks are mismanaged, and the water is getting wasted, is a classic case where there is improper planning. In the age of big data and AI, can't we have predictive analytics of how much we need, how much buffer stock we should maintain? That is not happening. So there is improper data management at every resource level, and we need to align our planning to a system from the basic where your fresh water is found, glaciers, till the sea, surface to sea, what all stages the water passes. You have to manage them properly with coordination. That is the central concept of this article. With that context, go and read this article. What is the takeaway that you can store in your notes? This article is important because you can still use this data even next year. So there are some points. This is UN. Okay. This is the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. We are focusing on something called blue economy, meaning we want to leverage marine resources for our development. But like I told you, no water system should be studied in isolation. It's a cycle, it's a system. And as a part of that system, conservation of water, the practices that you should take up. For example, deforestation is a subject matter of the Ministry of Environment and Forest. But at the same time, they are important for water governance, because if you don't respect forests, the underground water will not be held there in aquifers. They just get washed away because of erosion. Here, there is a prelims question, permeability and porosity. Two concepts which are important. There is a prelims question this time. Read that. Permeability and porosity. How is it important for holding water in groundwater aquifers? That is important. Go and check that. So, source to sea approach from glaciers till sea is the central point of this argument. Then there is something called Manila Declaration. Please note down, otherwise you will not see what to note. You should understand, right? Manila Declaration in this article. What is Manila Declaration? Where is Manila? Any idea? Philippines, exactly. And then Global Environmental Facility. Read the basics of this. These are the prelims pointers. The first national water policy was introduced in 1987. Go and check the water policy basics. What problems were discussed, what solutions were proposed, why is it time that we relook at it? Because it is not considering this systemic approach, integrating different stakeholders. Okay, that's all you need to know from this perspective. Go and read this article now. Okay, next up, with respect to food safety standards, there is a problem in regulation. There is a mismatch between the reality and what is actually harming the people. The rules are outdated sometimes. There is a need for updating our rules. Recently in news, you must have seen the food raids in Telangana across Hyderabad. restaurants were raided by food safety authorities, and most of the restaurants were flouting the norms. It's not just about restaurants. Every industry that is involved in food processing will have an impact on the health of the consumer. For example, last year there is something called rhodamine. This is a carcinogenic, meaning cancer causing material. This was used in cotton candy, in the pink color of cotton candy, peach mithai. Okay, what you see in that is a cancer causing material. Karnataka banned this because across Karnataka they were using this in gobi manchuria, the street food. The red color that you see in gobi manchuria is a cancer causing agent, and yet most of us don't care. Even after knowing this news, nobody cares. So food safety standards should be updated with reality. The mismatch between what is happening on the ground and what should be done. For example, MSG. You know what is this? MSG? Monosodium glutamate. Ajinomoto. Heard about it? The Japanese brand which produced this was actually demonized by US. There is an interesting story behind this. I'll just take a small detour so that you understand how businesses function, the role of media, and how it is impacting societies. Role of media in building societies. In that, I'll take the case study of MSG. Slight detour, not related to this article completely, but just to open up your thought process, I'm discussing this. Back in 60s and 70s, New York, which is considered to be the hub of global cultures, you have people from every country, every culture. It's said that if you want to taste the food in New York, Manhattan area, go to every restaurant, it would take more than a year. Not a year, maybe even more. I don't remember the exact statistics. It's an interesting take. Much more than that. And you will still run out of time. If your only job is to eat in every new place that is opened, your entire year is not enough there. So many restaurants became famous, and the biggest hit there, hit as in popular there, is Chinese food. Chinese food or entire Oriental cuisine use this monosodium glutamate, a taste enhancer, because it amplifies the taste on our tongue, taste buds. There was continuous research that was published that this is dangerous to health, it will cause palpitations, etc. Continuously, many journals produced that only in a small set of crowd. And if you take a look back at who funded those research, it is mostly American corporates, because they did not want to promote Chinese food. Many decades later, it was completely proved that MSG is safe. But there is consumer distrust. Just like how UPSC aspirants follow the trends given by toppers from 2016, 17, 18 without updating on a real time, that is the same problem even for regulatory bodies. It is clearly proven that MSG is safe, but people do not trust. You remember the issue with Maggie? It's not because first they started with lead content. Nestle had to prove that it's not the case. Then they came up with MSG. They said MSG is not safe. And Nestle Maggie brand had to rebrand itself to say that we are not using MSG, it is safe. There was a temporary ban on Maggie for a brief period. Remember? They came back and said we are not using MSG, but ironically the taste did not change. I don't know what they did. And everybody was convinced, okay, taste did not change, we are happy, we don't care. So is it a game of convincing or is it really science backed? We don't really know. The lab reports can be, manufactured. And in this ecosystem of mistrust, how do you convince people this is safe enough? And whose role is it? Food safety authorities. This is the national level policy. If you take a look at the UN Codex Alimentarius, this is not UN, sorry, FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization, it comes up with a code of standards which is updated on a real time. It has many working groups. The working group on spice standards, India is playing a major role there. Okay, so what this article says is we have to align our food standards according to the global standards. Yesterday we were talking about sanitary and phytosanitary measures. If we do this, the cost of labs will significantly come down because the ecosystem will be normalized. There will be many more labs and the cost of those labs will be affordable for MSME. So when you want to export, let's say, some kind of a fish or some prawns from the coastal regions of Andhra Pradesh to Britain. Yesterday we were talking about UK EU free trade agreement and how we should leverage, and in that context we talked about marine products, marine exports, the largest segment. We have a very good market, but MSME industries will suffer because of standards, non-technical barriers to trade, sanitary and phytosanitary measures. In that context, this alignment will be very important because it will bring down the costs. Because many more labs will be there. When you have a standard, it's not like, let's say for example, one country says, I want this standard. To get it tested and certified, sometimes you have to go to a different state. This is very expensive. Taking your sample, just imagine taking a sample which can be rotten and then get it certified, and by the time it comes back it's already rotten. How viable is it? It's not viable. So if you want to encourage a ecosystem of an industry, whatever helps in producing a sustainable economy, you need to align with the global standards, because globalization will improve the markets. That is the central focus of this article. Clear? Now this shipwreck. See, you have to take a look at entire sea as a system. We are using seas for our sea lanes of communication for our trade. And if you are not respecting the sanctity of those seas, let's say in this shipwreck, untreated waste, plastic waste was being carried. Why? Most probably to dump it in landfills in India. You have watched this movie, Surya's Singham, right? It's actually well researched, because that is what happens in Africa and low development countries. Global waste is dumped in LDCs. Improper waste management. And in this process, if something happens to the ship, that waste is getting washed out to the seas. As a result, who are the stakeholders who are suffering? Fishermen. Tourism industry is affected because the beaches are entirely spoiled. People staying in that locality will face a lot of problem because of the pollution, the smell, everything. Life form in oceans is getting dismantled. Ocean currents are changing their patterns because of the plastic garbage that is getting accumulated. And this ocean currents will regulate our systems across the world, weather systems. So wherever human beings are present, we have to respect that nature. And ironically, that is not happening. It will have multifold consequences. Those awareness of that consequence is what is tested in your prelims and mains. Awareness of the problem and its consequences. With this framework, read this article. Okay? That's it for today. We will meet in tomorrow's class. Read these newspaper articles. I can just summarize, but your active learning is actually what makes you remember this. Okay? Yesterday we have had a talk with All India Rank 11. She was mentioning how she used this newspaper articles and the telegram links, etc., especially in her ethics and GS2. She scored 133 in ethics. There is an ethics channel separately where I post it, and there is this usual posts on Hindu highlights. Apart from that, during interviews, she studied more and more newspapers. I usually cover articles from 6 different newspapers: Financial Express, Hindu, Indian Express, Live Mint. But predominantly, we have to focus on what is important for this exam only. Okay? And you need to learn what to take away from that newspaper article. Okay? With this context, we will end today's class. See you tomorrow.